The class laughed at the black girl, and the teacher supported them until he appeared from the Pentagon. At first glance, it seems like a typical school story. A new student tries to find her place among the spoiled offspring of influential families. But what if, behind the simple words of the girl no one believes, there's something much more? When the truth finally comes out, it's not just a reputation that's at stake, but national security. Before we begin the story, write in the comments where in the world you're watching from today. Cory Robinson noticed their stares the moment she entered the St. Agnes School building with a backpack. That wasn't designer and a jacket she'd been wearing since last year. No one said a word, but it was clear. St. Agnes School is not just a private school. It was a miniature version of the world, where every name meant something, and last names were more important than grades. The children of senators, corporate owners, and people whose nannies even had better resumes than many teachers attended here. And against their background, Cory, a black girl from an ordinary suburb, looked, to put it mildly, alien. She walked down the hallway, trying to keep her back straight, as her dad had taught her. Don't give them a reason to think you're less than them. But when you're the only one not wearing Balenciaga sneakers, it's hard. Hey, you're new, a voice said from behind. Cory turned. Standing before her was a tall, blond boy with impeccably coiffed hair. Cam Lawrence, the son of a congressman. How had she known? From the brochure they gave her on the first day. His face was polite, but his voice held a frozen mockness. Yes, she replied. I'm Camden. Welcome to the rich man's paradise. Where are you from? Arlington. Oh, that's cool. My people keep a house there when they're not in Miami. My people? She just nodded. Well, I'll see you in social studies. New girl, he said and moved on. In social studies, she sat by the window, closer to the door. The others sat in their usual places, exchanging glances, whispering. The teacher, Mr. Rawls, looked at her with an expression she'd seen in adults before, a mixture of curiosity and restrained doubt. We have a new girl. Introduce yourself, he said, without looking up. From his magazine. Cory Ben's son. They moved recently. And the parents, who do what? Mom, nurse, dad. He works at the Pentagon, in the cyber department. For a split second, the class fell silent, and then someone, perhaps Camden, chuckled loudly. Well, yeah, right, he muttered. A few people chuckled, and someone whispered, I wish the president would speak. Mr. Rawls smiled too. The Pentagon, you say? Well, we all have to strive for the best, right? Cory felt her cheeks heat up. She knew her father had asked her not to advertise her work. But he really did work there. Not a spy, not a hero, but a real analyst. Special Network Defense Division. Her father wasn't a fiction. She sat down alone in the cafeteria. There was a hubbub, laughter, and the clatter of dishes all around. Two girls walked past. One said out loud, clearly to her, You think it's true, Pentagon? Looks like she's been watching too many TV shows. Cory finished her lunch, trying not to show her emotions. That evening, she called her father at home. He was on a business trip, as he often was. Everything's okay, baby, he asked. Yeah, they just don't believe you work at the Pentagon, and they're laughing. He paused, then said, They'll laugh until they see who you are, and one day they'll find out who I am. I promise you, one day, you'll be standing there, and they'll listen. She didn't answer, just held the phone and listened to his voice. The next day, the school announced, In 3 weeks, it's Parents' Day. Parents would speak about their professions. The students were already sharing. Some mothers were judges, some fathers were lobbyists, foundation owners, space program developers. When her turn came, Cory quietly said, My father, if he gets back from his business trip, might speak too. He works at the Pentagon. The teacher smiled reservedly. In the journal, next to her name, she wrote in pencil under the question. Someone giggled again. As she left class, Cory saw a post-it note on her notebook. The FBI is on its way, don't forget your bulletproof vest. She peeled the note off and tossed it in the trash. With each passing week, her time at St. Agnes School grew more and more difficult. At first, Cory had simply tried to avoid attention, then to ignore it, and now it seemed as if her very existence was irritating some people, especially Camden. I heard, you said something about the Pentagon again? He asked, casually, standing by her locker. I didn't say anything, Cory replied calmly. They asked me, and I replied, of course, you're a special agent. Or maybe, the general's daughter. He chuckled and walked away, tossing over his shoulder. Dad's probably having coffee with James Bond. Cory didn't answer. She was used to this game. Say nothing directly, but put everything needed into intonation. The others picked up. Rumors spread around school. Some claimed that her dad was actually a driver, others that he didn't exist at all. At the Media Journalism Club, which Cory had naively signed up for, they told her to her face, we need an interview with real parents, not imaginary ones. Sorry. She didn't apologize. She simply got up and left. In history class, when discussing government agencies, someone in the back of the class whispered loudly, maybe Cory can explain everything to us. She's straight from the Pentagon. Even the teacher, Ms. Lowry, couldn't help but smile slightly. And yet, that wasn't the worst part. It was the feeling that even adults didn't believe you. One day, after class, Cory stayed late to ask a question about her homework. Mr. Rawls, without looking up from his computer, suddenly said, Cory, tell me, honestly, is it true that your father works at the Pentagon? Yes, she replied calmly. Don't get me wrong, I'm not judging. It's just that sometimes kids make things up to feel more confident. Here, of course, the level is high. He emphasized the last word, as if implying that she wasn't welcome there. He really does work there. I can bring him to Parents' Day. Mr. Rawls nodded reservedly. Well, then I'll write it down. Let him come. It will be interesting to listen to. But his voice didn't sound like someone expecting to meet someone serious, more like someone ready for a revelation. That evening, Cory sat in her room and stared at the blank screen of her tablet. Mom was working the night shift. Dad was on a trip to Maryland. He called yesterday, asked her not to worry and promised to be back on time. But now, she doubted he would come. And if he didn't come, they wouldn't believe her. Or worse, they would say he didn't come because he didn't exist. She wrote him a short message, you'll definitely be there. The reply came a couple of minutes later. I promise. Baby, I won't miss it for anything. And yes, I'll take the badge in case anyone needs proof. Cory smiled, but not for long. That morning, a printout had been lying on her desk, a signed photo of some man in overalls. Here's your daddy, a janitor at the Pentagon, also working. Cory took the paper, carefully folded it, and hid it in her backpack. Someone was watching her reaction, but she didn't give it a single chance. At lunch, a girl sat at her table. Liv. They had hardly spoken before. Liv looked at her. Seriously. You know, they all think you made it all up. What about you? Cory immediately decided to ask. I don't know, but if it's true, you're brave. If it's not true, it was stupid to say. They don't forgive such things here. This really, Cory said quietly. Liv nodded and stood up. Then you better hope he comes. There was a week left until Parents' Day. A list of participants hung by the door to her office, and next to hers, someone had written in pen. Or was he on a secret mission again? Cory wiped the writing with her finger. The ink smeared, but the mark remained. When she came home, an envelope lay on the desk. It was postmarked Washington. Inside was an official invitation to Parents' Day and a printout of the pass. James Robinson, Department of Defense. Her father had kept his word. She hung the pass on the wall above her desk. A reminder, everything would soon change. Cory's morning began not with panic, as it usually does before important events, but with silence. Everything was too succinctly organized in her head. She woke up before her alarm, put on a neat skirt, ironed by her mother, a white shirt and cardigan. Dad promised to arrive at 11. His speech was 6th on the list. Everything had to go right. Even the bus was on time. The auditorium was crowded. The parents entered through a separate entrance. They were greeted by seniors in formal suits. Each had a badge with their last name and position. Cory looked around, trying to find a familiar face. Her father was gone. A voice from the side said, excitement. Camden, everything's fine, she answered. I heard we have a special guest today. Straight from the Pentagon, they say, or from a Hollywood casting call. You'll be surprised, Cory said calmly. Oh, I already am. Especially if he shows up at all. He walked past without even glancing in her direction. One by one, the parents spoke on stage. Sophia's father was talking about the oil company. Dylan's mother about lobbying work. Someone presented a quantum computing startup. The stage was decorated with a banner reading, "The future begins with example." Each speaker received 5 minutes. The applause grew. When their turn came, Cory, the host, a music teacher, smiled and announced, "Now Cory Robinson is speaking. Her father works for the Department of Defense." The stage was too big, the room too quiet. Cory approached the microphone, feeling her legs buckle a little. "Hello, my name is Cory, and I want to tell you a little about my father's work. He works at the Pentagon. He's a cybersecurity specialist. This means he helps protect digital systems from attacks, hacks, and data leaks." A chuckle rang out somewhere in the hall, followed by another. One of the students whispered, "And now, the actor is about to come." "He couldn't," Camden asked loudly, unabashedly. "Or is his mission classified?" The room giggled nervously. Even some of the parents exchanged glances. Cory swallowed. "He'll be there. He promised." "Well, yes," one of the adults intervened. "This isn't an ordinary job. This is probably being late, a matter of national importance." "Let's let her finish," the teacher muttered. But her voice sounded tired. "He's just running late." Cory looked toward the entrance where the parents should appear. Empty. She fell silent. Well, someone in the front row said. Next. Cory was still standing. She didn't want to leave the stage. That would mean giving in, admitting that they were right. She repeated, "He'll come." And at that moment, a strange movement began in the room. One of the parents, a man in a suit, judging by his badge, a congressional staffer, pulled out a tablet. His face tightened. Then the second, the woman from the tech company, frowned, checking her phone. Cory felt the air in the room change. Someone whispered, "Is it a virus? What's wrong with the network? Someone's hacking the internal mailing list." The room buzzed. The director's assistant came onto the stage and quickly said something in the host's ear. She nodded, stepped back, and then the doors swung open. A tall man in a dark blue jacket, no tie, entered the room, carrying a neat folder. With a confident gait, he walked forward and stepped onto the stage. "Sorry for the delay," he said, looking directly at Cory. "I had to stop the attack literally." Cory recognized the voice, and suddenly all the noise around her became background. She took a half step back, and he put his hand on her shoulder. "James Robinson, Ministry of Defense. This morning, we detected a targeted hacking attempt against devices connected to this building's local area network. It appears someone wanted to obtain data about people in the hall. Some of you have probably already noticed strange activity on your devices. Now, I ask you to turn off Wi-Fi and do not open any unknown notifications. Pause. But don't worry, we've already intercepted most of the attack. The service is already working on the source." The hall was silent. Then came applause. Cautious, but real. Cory was still standing next to him. He leaned over and whispered, "I promised I'd come." She didn't answer, just nodded. Now no one in the hall was laughing. After James Robinson's words, the auditorium fell silent. Not a whisper, not a movement. Only the muffled hum of tablets and phones being turned off, as if someone had given the command to silence. Even those who had been giggling half an hour ago now looked at the stage with bewildered attention, as if not could believe that this was happening for real. School principal Mr. Eldridge quickly approached the stage and turned to Cory's father. "Mr. Robinson, are you sure this is truly a threat?" "I am," he nodded curtly. "We have tracked unauthorized access to the local network. The intrusion occurred through a fake login page for the school Wi-Fi, masquerading as an official one." He pulled a tablet from a folder and brought up a diagram of events, IP addresses, routes. One of the parents gasped, seeing their name among the targets. Most of those present are somehow connected to government agencies, large companies, lobbying organizations. Whoever it was, they were preparing, collecting data, passwords, emails, contacts. "We are under attack," One of the mothers couldn't take it anymore. Not anymore. The threat has been neutralized. But we can't rule out that it was just reconnaissance. Therefore, everyone who connected to the network today, please hand over their devices to our team at the exit. We have persuaded school administration to cooperate. I promise. Everything will be confidential and in compliance with protocols. He spoke calmly, without pomp, but with a firmness that sent shivers down Cory's spine. This was her father, and now no one doubted that she was telling the truth. After the speech, Mr. Eldridge invited James and Cory into his office. 2 officers from the cyber unit were already there. They arrived literally 15 minutes earlier, dressed in civilian clothes. The conversation was fast and to the point. Cory sat slightly to the side, watching her father. He was focused, calm, nodding occasionally, pointing to something on his tablet. There were no unnecessary words in his speech. He wasn't trying to show off, as the bull put it. He was simply doing his job. We can't say for sure who's behind this, James said, but disguising themselves as the school system is clever. They were counting on no one noticing, especially on a day when so many valuable targets were gathered in one place. So, Parents' Day was the bait, the principle clarified, or the catalyst. It was the perfect opportunity. Relaxed users, a shared network, a large number of influential people. But we've already passed the data up. Now it's up to our team. Half an hour later, Cory and her father emerged into the schoolyard. The event ended early. Some parents left immediately, others lingered in the hallway, discussing the situation. At the door, officers were already accepting the device. Camden approached them. Cory braced herself for sarcasm, but his face was different. No smirk, no frown. Mr. Robinson, he began. Listen, I wanted to apologize to you and to Cory. I acted like an idiot. Nobody thought. It was all true. Sometimes the truth is hardest to see when it doesn't fit your expectations, James replied calmly. Cayman nodded, turned away, and walked away. It was weird, Cory whispered. Get used to it, little one. When the truth rises to its full height, many people's eyes drop. That afternoon, the school called an emergency meeting. The principal publicly apologized to Cory, thanked James for his quick and professional response, and mentioned that the school intended to review its internal security protocols. Cory sat in the front row. There were no more sidelong glances, whispers, or giggles. Liv, the same girl who had once said it better be true, sat down next to me. You know, she whispered, I've never known anyone whose parents worked at the Pentagon. Now I do. Cory didn't know what to say. She simply smiled. After the meeting, she and her father walked out to the car. So, he said, starting the engine. Where should I take you, heroine? I could just go home. But first, maybe, to the cafe on the corner. I want ice cream. It's too serious a day. Ice cream is a psychological stabilization strategy. He winked. I approve. She buckled up, looked out the window, and drove past the school. Her school was now, for real. 2 days after Parents' Day, the school had become quieter. Not in the literal sense. Bells were still ringing, and teenagers with loud voices were still running through the halls. But the atmosphere had changed. It no longer felt hostile. No longer did the glances directed at Cora carry a hint of mockery. Now it was interest and respect. The first person to approach her in the library was the social studies teacher, Mr. Rawls. He looked as stern as always, but his voice had a different note. Cory, he began, adjusting his glasses. I want to apologize. I think you know what I was doing. I don't look my best. She nodded, but didn't smile. Just said calmly, thank you for telling me. We're having a new unit on digital security. I was thinking, maybe you could speak in front of the class. Tell me what you know, or maybe ask your dad to send some materials. The offer was honest, not condescending, and that was nice. I'll think about it, she replied. After class, Liv invited her to join them for lunch. 3 other girls were sitting at their table. One of them, Madison, cautiously asked, did you really know there would be an attack? No, he never says anything like that. He just promised he'd come, and he did. He's cool, Liv said. For the first time in weeks, Cory felt like she wasn't a guest in this building, she was a part of it. That evening, Mom brought home pizza. Dad had just flown in from a briefing in D.C. They had dinner in the kitchen, as usual, without waiters, without security, without pomp. "How was your day?" he asked. "Not as noisy as last one." Cory chuckled. "Things calmed down quickly here," Mom interjected. "In our time, a week of discussions would be the bare minimum." "Do you think they'll forget everything?" Cory asked. Her father placed the glass on the table. "Some do. Most don't. But what's more important isn't what they remember, but who you become after this," she nodded. He was right. The next week, Cory came to the board in computer science class. She was talking about phishing, how to distinguish a fake website from a real one, which passwords are more secure, and how malicious scripts work. Everyone was listening, including Camden. He wasn't joking anymore. On the contrary, he asked a couple of intelligent questions. When class ended, he came up to her and said, "You know, I still think you made up the James Bond coffee thing, but you're doing great." "Thank you, Camden. And you're almost not annoying when you're not laughing." He laughed and left. At the end of the week, Cory passed the notice board. There was a new schedule of clubs posted there. Someone had added in marker, "Looking for people for a new club. Cybersecurity. Headliner Cory Robinson. Who knows, will understand." She smiled, turned to take a photo, and saw Liv standing nearby. "Are you going to participate?" she asked. "I haven't decided yet, but I think so. Dad will be happy. He's a hero. You know, he's just doing his job. Just like Mom." Liv nodded. "And you?" Cory thought for a moment. "And I just kept talking." On Sunday, she and her father went again to that same cafe, a small place on the corner that always smelled of caramel. They sat by the window, ate ice cream, and watched the children play outside. "So, little one, ready for the next attack?" He chuckled. She looked at him, then at the cup of chocolate chips, and said, "Always."